On monetary policy and FX liquidity management, absolutely brilliant. But on rate management, I am confused because from an SME standpoint, the guys are suffering.
You're welcome to the Economy and Politics Conversation. I'm Ottoabasi Abasiekong. This edition, we're looking at geopolitics, energy costs, and the impact on Nigerian SMEs. My guest joining me in the studio for this conversation is Mr. Ayo Bankole-Akintujoye. He's the CEO of Caladium Consulting. Great to have you, Ayo.
Thank you. It's
Once
nice
again
to
our
be here
studio.
again, Otto. It's nice to see the team.
First time for this year, and great work you're doing with the Caladium Consulting and SME scaling.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Of course, for everyone watching, SMEs are drivers of the economy, so this conversation is very important at this time. Let's begin with the geopolitical shocks. We've seen what has happened in the Middle East, the Iran, Israel, US hostilities, and how it has impacted the global economy. But let's scale down. How has this impacted SMEs in Nigeria at this time?
It's been a very interesting time since the entire disruption happened to the global economy. First, it was with Ukraine and Russia, and then now is with Iran and Israel and the US. And there hasn't been any shock that has been this bad since COVID. I mean, you could directly, but not, it's going to be more expensive and near impossible to fight directly against, launch an attack against the US or against Israel, right? Especially against the US from the Middle East. And that has always been the advantage of the US. So what they did was to fight on the economic front. You know, just that strait that they closed affected over 20% of global oil supply. But more importantly, it affected some regions more than the other. And if you look at the world map, which we in our company have done an analysis of, you see that there are some parts that are totally green, some parts near green, some parts are amber, right? And then you see that most of the part of the world are affected one way or the other. However, a few countries like Nigeria, some in Southern America who produce oil and also refine are a bit shielded from it. Unfortunately, even if you are shielded means you control your entire supply chain from production to refinery, because what the strait does is that ships that are moving from the Gulf region would come through that strait and hit Africa. But when you close that strait, people now have to come all the way this way. But for us, we produce, we refine, and we distribute. So ordinarily, we should be shielded. But because the oil is a global commodity, so it's priced and benchmarked against global prices, so we still got affected. But it's then interesting because as of January, for example, Brent was at about $87. As of today, in May, it's now about 108, right? So that's almost a 57 or so% spike. But domestically, we've moved from 800 to 1,300, which is almost 60%. So we've even jumped higher than global benchmark. So the conversation then is, because we don't have stable electricity, when shocks happen to global energy supply, it affects us more because we use it for survival. Our SMEs rely on it for electricity. They rely on it for transportation. So there's transport inflation, there's electricity inflation. They rely on it for literally everything, to sleep at home, to keep their laptops on, everything. So that's why you see that the strain on our SMEs is even a whole lot more. And data is there to support it.
While you're speaking, we could see some of the data from Caladium Consulting displayed, showing the impact. And this is why it's very critical at this time to find ways to explore how SMEs can navigate the headwinds, which is the next point of our interaction. You are in Caladium Consulting, you interact with the whole community of SMEs and other catalysts for SMEs. In your interactions, what are those key things they are hearing that are the cost drivers for SMEs to achieve sustainable growth?
Fantastic. I mean, we've done this survey. We've also done interactions post the war to find out where these biggest cost drivers are. And to our, amazing, not so surprised, but to our shock, almost 40%, about 37% of their total cost goes to energy. We've seen interviews by hotel owners, school proprietors, manufacturers, even banks, are beginning to take very heavy investments in renewable energy to slash their energy costs. We saw a bank who owns a, high-rise in CMS, clad the entire high-rise with solar panels. We know a retail bank that all their branches now are powered on solar, So if banks who have tremendous liquidity are doing that, you can then imagine what SMEs are doing. We in our company, for example, migrated to solar, quite a while. And now we are even upgrading the solar size. Yeah. And that's the interesting thing about renewable energy, which most people don't know. The first impression SMEs get is, it's too expensive. Because we have these conversations in our community. It's too expensive. They don't know that solar is now so commoditized that you can literally buy a 25,000 naira solar that just helps you charge your phone, plug your laptop, and put on lights. So there's a graduated scale of renewable energy as a strategy to energy cost for SMEs on the one end. And then there's also the fluidity and flexibility of work, which is a lot of us inherited our mindset of presenteeism. Oh, you must be in my phone before I know that you're working. And yes, that, applies in a lot of cases to some unique environment. For example, in this media organization, we have to be in this studio for us to shoot. Reporters have to be on the field to you. But if you are not organized in that manner, there's no reason why you should emphasize presenteeism, because it drives cost up. So what you need to work on more is, how can I make my people productive even when they are not at work, so that you can begin to track all your major cost items and reduce them. Otherwise, it's going to be difficult to catch up, to break even on productivity. So energy cost, transportation cost is the second thing that is a big headache to SMEs. And you'll be surprised, you would have expected that it should be labor. But labor cost in this part of the world is relatively, cheap. The smaller your business is, the more you can look at, unskilled labor, and they will still meet your requirement. For example, most of those in agriculture use unskilled labor. A lot of people in manufacturing use unskilled labor. But of course, there needs to be policies also to guide the usage of unskilled labor so that they are not necessarily exploited. But labor, comparing global benchmark, is relatively cheap in this part of the world. We should be the China of Africa if we were serious about manufacturing. So electricity cost, transportation cost, and then, labor and getting the right talent has been the biggest challenge. Not necessarily the cost, but getting the right talent has been the three major buckets of challenges that SMEs have.
Interesting. Even though, as you talked about renewable energy, the need for it, we also need to work on fixing our main stream of electricity in the country.
That's the most important.
It's very important.
That's the most important thing that we need to do. I'm surprised that this administration did not prioritize it as infrastructure, pain points. Because I would have expected that any government who is coming in here that intends to turn around the economy and all of that will just fix power. Because in strategy, there's what we call dependency mapping. Power is at the center of many other dependencies. Is to auto-fix a lot of sectors. But again, maybe they are waiting for a second time, or maybe there's a magic one.
So you're going to politics, but the most important thing, it was even decentralized, and state governments also have a role to play in that.
Absolutely, and kudos to the former president. I think that's one of the good things that he did. The bill had been in progress, had been in advanced stages. I think the president just came in and signed for the decentralization of power. That law alone has held our power sector back for years. That was what did not make the PPPs in Lagos State and Aaron and all that.
Even Akwa Ibom states.
At the time, So now the expectation is, with that law in place, hopefully government will now double down. The next government that is coming will now double down on operationalizing that law, such that clusters can come to, for example, these estates can come together and build a power station that supplies power to this environment without pressure from regulation or externals or having to link to the supply power grid and all that. And before you know it, would expand. That's how it's done in a lot of other countries. You see different power regions and power clusters, and they provide power to themselves.
And that's how SMEs will thrive.
Absolutely.
So let's look at the Central Bank of Nigeria. Of course, last week they had their Monetary Policy Committee meeting, 205th session. and they retained the monetary policy rate at 26.5% as projected by several insights from analysts. This lending rate environment at this time, how is it for SMEs? And what should be done, because the real sector still needs funding. We just finished the recapitalization of banking sector, over 4.67 trillion realized.
New capital.
At this time,
The biggest challenges that SMEs have is access to capital, access to energy, and access to the right resources, which is, talent, advice, and all of that. You see, this capital issue, most SMEs do not even make 30% margin on their business. So if you are telling them to pay you loans of 30%, that's already killing them, profitability, EBITDA, whatever margin you're looking at is already killing the business, right? So, and I don't know why our government believes that increasing or retaining a high rate, MPR rate, is the solution to mitigating against inflation that is cost push. It's a cost-driven inflation. Prices are not going up because we have a lot of money to outbid each other. That's not why. I mean, I'm not paying more school fees because I have more money. No, I'm paying it because cost has increased. Why has cost increased? Because FX has devalued, because petrol prices is increasing. So it's a cost push inflation. So what I would expect is that we would reduce inflation rate. More people can borrow, more people can do economic activity, and then there can be more employment. There can be more liquidity in the system. So I really don't understand on this rate issue. I really don't understand what the CBN is doing, because on monetary policy and FX, liquidity management, absolutely brilliant. But on rate management, I am confused, because from an SME standpoint, the guys are suffering. There is cash crunch. They cannot access capital to expand, to blow up their operations. And without that, they are downsizing, they are shrinking, everybody's shouting lean, cost. Give these guys money at lower rates. Let's create specialized funds that you would work with partners and clusters to get it to them at decent rate. And the government knows this. They are already doing, little here and there, but it's not at scale.
Speaking about scale now, the development financial institutions play a role there. And of course, we have heard signals that they want to recapitalize some of the DFIs, like the Bank of Industry does a lot of interventions for SMEs. We have the Development Bank of Nigeria. We have the Bank of Agriculture, and amongst others. What are your expectations in this regard? Because in recapitalization, this has to bring more efficiency. What are your expectations in this regard?
I absolutely agree with the recapitalization. My only issue with how development institutions in Nigeria operate is always that we have not found a way to solve developmental problems that suits our own peculiar situation. So what they do is that they funnel their interventions through the commercial banks, right? Almost all of them. When you do that, the challenge that exists now is that our SMEs are unable to meet the requirements of the commercial banks. It's supposed to be alternative financing directly from the government to develop sectors. So you can now go again and funnel it again through them. What has then happened is you've created a multi-layered problem, where first layer of problem is there's no incentive for the banks to give you the money, because they have their own liquidity. Their business is interest. They also want to give interest at higher rate, right? Now, second is you've told them to profile the customer, to give loans at rates that is lower than their own rate, but you want them to bear the entire risk. So that's what's going on. So if I'm going to bear the entire risk, why would I want to give them your own fund over my own fund? Do you understand? So it's a hydra-headed problem that you've caused. Meanwhile, the most important problem is that the SMEs, the nano, the micro, and small business owners are mostly in the informal sector. So how they are getting their fund today is through their own cooperatives, their chief societies, and all of that, and through, micro and informal lenders whose interest rates are tremendously high. But yet they are paying, for a lot of them, default is low because they've understood how to manage themselves. So DFIs need to connect directly with those working systems at the base level and find a way to track and develop them. The more, even if it's 10, that you can evolve from a micro business over a 10-year period to become a Dangote out of 1 million. One Dangote is going to power the entire economy. Do you understand what I'm saying? You don't need just 1 million micro businesses. Just hyper focus on 10 of them and grow them over a 10-year period. But what we're doing now is we're channeling the money through the banks and also spreading our resources in such a way that the impact and scale is not felt, because by your design, you've excluded those who really need these interventions. And that's what's going on.
Very, very interesting. Which leads to our outlook now. Looking at the SMEs for the remainder of the year and the years to come, what are the optics? And you just talked about the issue of scale. Caladium Consulting, you have the Caladium Foundation, you have the boot camp that you do, you have others like Tony Elumelu Foundation, Lagos Employment Trust Fund, Faith Foundation, NMSME Africa. They're all involved as clusters for SME growth. What do you like to see happen more in terms of positioning, engagement, and the outlook for SMEs?
I think that we need to replicate the partnership that LSETF is doing across the various states, and including the federal government. I do not think that SMEDAN is engaging enough the way that LSETF probably is doing. And I do not think that, I've already mentioned about development institutions, even the government itself. But I don't even like to focus on, too much of the center. If all the states can come together, and now let me give you an example of what LSETF is doing. What they're doing is they are creating SME empowerment programs in each local government, and they are doing it in partnership with foundations and technical partners who are experts at deploying such programs, and then they are providing this funding, the liquidity. Now, it's a tripartite agreement. So the LSETF, the local government, and the technical partners, with the SMEs in the middle. So they deliver capacity training, they provide, affordable funding, the local government provide the people and infrastructure, and then the SME becomes better. They graduate them, they monitor them, they track the loans, they track the business, and gradually. So we need to replicate that model across board such that the development institutions provide affordable liquidity through the clusters. The clusters graduate a certain type of SMEs that are bankable. You provide that liquidity to those SMEs. Then we work in partnership with local governments to know them, know their places, monitor them, and ensure that they multiply the value. Those types of collaborations and multi-level partnerships is what we need to do to scale. Not that a few people, they release a few billions, a few people will sit down somewhere, they will just decide, okay, this is who should win, this is who should get it, this is who should not get it. Before you know it, just a few people have benefited. There's no scale. And we are too many. We have 41 million SMEs in this country.
Yes.
We need a program that would reach at least 5 million. We can't be doing things, I give 10,000 people 10,000 naira. 2,000 people. Those are infinitesimal numbers. They should not even be documented anywhere that in a country of 200 million people. And the SMEs contribute over 90% of our jobs, of our total jobs. And I tell people this, that if you are having conversations about SMEs, you need to understand the sector. Most of us don't even understand the dynamics. Now, you think that we have big employers. Dangote is our biggest single employer. How many people does Dangote employ? Maybe just about 20,000 cumulative, right? The banks combined are the biggest sectoral employers. They don't employ more than 100,000 people. That's our labor construct. In America, Amazon alone, one company, employs 1.4 million people. So you don't have large-scale employers here. The sector that employs the most are the SMEs. Over 90% of our entire workforce, agriculture, media. How many large-scale media companies do we have in the real sense of the word? They are all SMEs. Technology. So that's where our real, most of our manufacturers are SMEs. That's where the real employment is. Transportation. You need to hyper-focus on a few of them, on a large number of them, then a few of them into a pipeline that ensures that they then emerge as giants. That policy is super important. The way China did it, the way Singapore and every other country has done it.
Very imposing close that we need to coordinate our activities in a way
interventions
that it achieves scale.
Yes.
At least 1 to 2 million SMEs.
Absolutely. You need to reach as many as 2 million.
Economy.
Because by the time you then discount it for maybe those who would die, those who would succeed, those who will be medium, at least you will get a 0.02%, which will come to about 200 people or 100 people or 50 people who would emerge as the next giants of Africa.
Very interesting conversation, Mr. Ayo Bankole-Akintujoye.
Thank you
I wish
so
we
much.
had more time to
unfortunately,
but
we
we'll keep track of this. And I mean, the geopolitics, energy cost, and the impact on Nigerian SMEs. You've really highlighted those shocks and challenges, but also given a very clear direction on what we must do to achieve scale, which will unlock the economy and take us to the path of sustainable growth. Thank you once again, Mr.
Thank you so much for having me.
Ayo Bankole-Akintujoye. Always a pleasure having you.
It's always a pleasure
Caladium Consulting.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. You know, SMEs are the key to growth. What an interesting conversation. To our viewers, if you want to get further insights on this conversation, visit the ProShare website displayed on the screen and follow our social media platforms to engage. Till we come your way again, enrich yourself with the knowledge of socioeconomic developments around you, because it's the wise thing to do. I'm Ottoabasi Abasiekong. Thank you for watching, and bye for now.